Well, I was talking about how the leadership of this country caused 13 to get killed in Afghanistan, which I'm sure as a veteran that upsets you.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, the MAGA lady, was being mistreated once more, most likely by some MAGA followers. But this has been a difficult week for her. Jamie Raskin and Dr. Fauci have both harassed her. At the rally, her fans booed her once more. By the way, comedians are still talking about her worship statement. Loud yells from protesters interrupted Greene's Wednesday afternoon visit to Albemarle County, delaying and ultimately ending her campaign rally for fellow Republican John McGuire. The Georgia Congresswoman traveled to the 5th Congressional District of Virginia in support of McGuire, a state senator running against Republican incumbent Representative Bob Good. Albemarle County is a well-known Democratic bastion, despite the 5th District's bright red color, as demonstrated on Wednesday. On Wednesday, Greene and McGuire pulled up in a bus bearing the name and likeness of former President Donald Trump to the Albemarle County Social Services headquarters, just 2 days prior to being found guilty of a felony related to accepting hush money payments connected to his 2016 campaign.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make it?
The adult film actress who claims she had an affair with President Trump wants to make a deal tonight. She is offering to give up the money she got paid to keep quiet so she can tell her story.
Trump had endorsed McGuire over Good. About 50 protesters greeted them as they arrived in Albemarle County, yelling things like "Go home" and "No hate in our state." On Wednesday at 4:20 p.m., protesters came well in advance of the bus, far outnumbering the perhaps 20 McGuire supporters who were gathered across the parking lot. To keep everything in order, about 12 Albemarle County police officers were present. For a few minutes, Greene and McGuire stayed inside the halted bus while demonstrators outside brandished banners and jeered. Subsequently, McGuire's followers approached the campaign bus in an effort to extend a friendlier greeting to the Republican guests. This resulted in conversations between the two factions while they waited for Greene and McGuire to get off the bus. A demonstrator yelled, "Are you having fun? Toward the bus. You were under no need to come here. You had the option to go elsewhere." Including Charlottesville and the University of Virginia, Albemarle County is a consistently Democratic territory that presents a difficult climate for most Republican candidates, particularly those connected to Trump. Even with his leadership in the hard WhiteHouse Freedom Caucus and his solid conservative credentials, McGuire and Greene regularly accuse Good of betraying Trump. The main cause of these charges is Good's early support of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
But this is important to me because I've served with Bob Good for several years now, and I have found him to be untrustworthy, and I've found him to be a liar. He's lied to this district about his support for President Trump. He stabbed President Trump in the back the very day that President Trump was indicted by Alvin Bragg
over Trump in the GOP presidential primary. He emphasized McGuire's violated vow to abstain from running for public office after securing his state Senate seat the previous year. Moreover, McGuire has declined to engage in a debate with his Republican opponent thus far. Despite the abundance of photos on McGuire's social media accounts showing him interacting with voters, Good contends that McGuire is not a skilled event presenter. More than 100 fans gathered in an Albemarle County coffee shop to hear Good's recent remarks. On Wednesday afternoon, a smaller contingent of McGuire's fans awaited him in Greene, but they were disappointed when the pair was overpowered by demonstrators. In an effort to avoid the demonstrators, Greene and McGuire got off the bus at 4:30 p.m. and crossed a patch of grass to go toward a corner of the parking lot. Greene brandished a blue megaphone bearing a campaign emblem for Governor Glenn Youngkin. The demonstrators muffled Greene's attempts to chant USA and Trump as they both posed for pictures with supporters.
Folded late this afternoon as 5th District Republican candidate John McGuire met with Albemarle County voters. With him on the campaign trail was controversial Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I had endorsed John just months ago after learning what a great person he is and learning about his character, his service to our country.
I'm protesting against the extreme right. I'm protesting against the rise of Christian nationalism and white supremacy.
To act as a barrier between the opposing factions, police surrounded the politicians and their supporters in a semicircle. Ironically, considering her previous disapproval of early voting when she endorsed conspiracy theories suggesting that the 2020 election was rigged and that Trump didn't lose to Joe Biden, Greene had publicized the visit to encourage early voting. Due to the protesters' cacophonous cries, neither Greene nor Maguire attempted to deliver their scheduled remarks with any seriousness. In less than 5 minutes after pulling into the parking lot, they were back on the bus. Maguire refused to answer any questions from the press. Why such ardent conservatives and Trump supporters would run for office in a Democratic stronghold like Albemarle County, where Biden received close to 66% of the vote in 2020, is still a mystery. However, the heckling might have been the intended outcome, surmised Kyle Kondik, the Center for Politics at UVA's Director of Communications. You almost wonder if that's the reaction they wanted, because that maybe makes news, Kondik stated. The whole point of those things is to get coverage. Shortly after the event, the Maguire campaign repeated this statement on social media. Declaring that he and Greene had ventured into the depths of the beast, Maguire shared a picture of the incident on Facebook. Crazy communists want to ruin this nation. Like President Trump, we won't back down from confronting the extreme left. This is the reason Bob Good needs to go. When the United States is at risk, we cannot afford betrayers, the message says. It was not originally planned for Maguire and Greene to visit Albemarle County. They first declared their intention to hold a rally at Charlottesville City Hall, where they would have probably encountered even more opposition due to the city's strong Democratic inclination. They contacted Charlottesville municipal officials, who stated they were unaware of the campaign stop, and they subsequently moved the location to the county polling place on Monday night. It's how Trumpians battle with one another. Attending the event on Wednesday, Carrie Williams Thornton, a resident of Nelson County, was able to get a picture with both Maguire and Greene, but she was disappointed that she was unable to hear their statements. I've never attended a political rally before, and I find the other side's ignorance to be absurd. Go back home and no hate are their mottos. What on earth is that? That is hatred, Thornton informed a press service. Let the people speak. They are incapable of speaking. Greene and Maguire had stopped in Louisa County earlier in the afternoon, where they had received a different response. Even though there were some good supporters there, the environment was far less antagonistic, enabling the duo to mingle and talk with guests. Tier, Maguire's campaign manager, expressed satisfaction with the Republican turnout in Albemarle County, which is typically blue, pointing out that many of them had cast early ballots. The Republican turnout in the Albemarle region was favorable. G told the Daily Progress they don't generally come out. The group of demonstrators applauded Greene and Maguire's departure from Albemarle County on Wednesday, seeing it as a minor victory for American democracy. Trump's party seeks to undermine democracy, said one of the numerous placards the demonstrators held up. A different placard said, "End authoritarianism now." Greene and Maguire will continue their campaign trail on Thursday, traveling to the counties of Powhatan and Henrico. This week, Marjorie Taylor Greene has also gone on the attack against Anthony Fauci, demanding that he be prosecuted and vehemently rejecting to recognize his medical background in a contentious debate.
Things quickly went from tense to emotional to chaotic. Exhibit A, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes.
From government service 2 years ago for perhaps his final showdown with Republicans over mask mandates, vaccine guidelines, and the origins of COVID-19.
Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license.
During a select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic hearing, Greene chastised Fauci bitterly. Republicans have been trying to show that Fauci hid information about the source of COVID-19 and that he supported studies that added to the pandemic's catastrophic effects. The vocal congressman from Georgia, who is well known for her conspiracy theories and right-wing opinions, took issue with Fauci's earlier statements that implied criticizing him was the same as criticizing science. She wondered if Fauci was a true representative of science. "It's not as easy as saying yes or no," she said. Sensing that he was unsure of his answer, she shot back, "We'll interpret that as you being uncertain of what you represent."
He's either a hero or a villain, depending on who you ask. In an era of extreme division and hyper-partisanship, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who became the face of America's response to the COVID pandemic.
Dr. Fauci, good to be with you here today. I was not here, but I saw a member of this committee questioned whether or not you represent science.
And then she continued this nonsense in the hall.
He's guilty of mass murder. I mean, Fauci he's an absolute monster. He should have his medical license revoked. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
Greene went on to show pictures of beagles that were utilized in National Institutes of Health-funded research. I didn't say I made it up, Fauci explained. I stated it lacked scientific basis and emerged spontaneously in response. Greene flaunted the picture of the canines. What relevance do dogs have to today's discussion?
This is science.
What does dogs have to do with anything that we're talking about today?
These are scientific experiments.
And tried to make that in some offensive way. I just want you to know most Americans don't think she represents Congress.
Fauci asked. Greene contended. She posted pictures of kids in confined pods during the pandemic and said it demonstrated the type of science being endorsed, connecting it to what she called sinister science. Your disgusting style of science, she continued. You are aware of what this committee ought to be doing. It is our recommendation that you be charged with a crime. You ought to be held accountable for crimes against humanity.
We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
The United States House of Representatives seem to want to drag your name through the mud. They're treating you, Dr. Fauci, like a convicted felon. Actually, you probably wish they were treating you like a convicted felon.
Prosecuted for crimes against humanity. Of course, whether you agree with Dr. Fauci or not, he has served his country.
Which is why we ought to be preparing a criminal referral. Dr. Fauci, you deserve behind bars. During the session, Garcia and other Democrats highlighted the death threats that Republicans had made to Fauci, his wife, and their daughters, and expressed regret for the attacks. Furthermore, earlier in the hearing, Raskin compared the efforts to undermine Fauci to the House Oversight Committee's botched attempts to remove President Joe Biden from office. Anthony Fauci, the former top public health official in charge of the country's response to COVID-19, identified Fox News and far-right Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene as the sources of the credible death threats he revealed to lawmakers following his appearance at a contentious U.S. House hearing on Monday. Whether it's news media, Fox News does it a lot, or it's somebody in the Congress who gets up and makes a public statement that the deaths of X number of people because of policies or some crazy idea that I created, immediately it's like clockwork. The death threats go way up, Fauci said in a CNN interview. The Republican Congresswoman from Georgia, who is well known for her conspiracy ideas, was then brought up by the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, emphasizing her criticism during Monday's testimony. Fauci told Caitlin Collins on CNN, "When you have performances like that unusual performance by Marjorie Taylor Greene in today's hearing, those are the kinds of things that drive up the death threats because there are a segment of the population out there that believe that kind of nonsense." That's it then. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trump's preferred Republican, has been in the news once more. Please leave your comments below with your opinions on Greene's deeds and remarks. For the most recent information on Trump and Republican politics, don't forget to subscribe.